it's kind of unfair to marketers and creators and everyone in space because the whole AI revolution is hitting us first. Like it's not
Yeah.
hitting healthcare or something. It's hitting everywhere, but the epicenter is in content creation. So it's hard for everyone in this space because we have to constantly change, constantly learn. And it's like the ground is shifting beneath our feet all the time. So it's exciting. It's stressful though, because you get in the work habit and then you have to relearn it. But I would say lots of people might think like, oh, it's just around the corner, just around the corner. But once you start using this kind of stuff, you realize how important it is to stay on top of it because it will, once it starts helping you do your job your day to day, I think that's a key moment. And we started to see that for some brands for, I'd say this is bar none, like AI is the best way of quickly communicating a creative idea visually. Like instead of taking time to make a brief, just take a minute and communicate it with a video. Like it's crazy.
Welcome to AI and Marketing Unpacked, where we simplify AI for impactful marketing. I'm your host, Mike Allton, here to guide you through the world of artificial intelligence and its transformative impact on marketing strategies. Each episode will break down AI concepts into manageable insights and explore practical applications that can supercharge your marketing efforts. Whether you're an experienced marketer or just starting to explore the potential of AI, this podcast will equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to succeed. So tune in and let's unlock the power of AI together. Greetings, program. Welcome back to AI and Marketing Unpacked, where I selfishly use this time to pick the brains of experts at keeping up with and integrating or layering artificial intelligence into social media, content, advertising, search, and other areas of digital marketing. Oh, and you get to learn too. Subscribe to be shown how to prepare yourself and your brand for this AI revolution and come out ahead. Now, are you leveraging the full potential of AI in your visual content creation? Have you explored how generative AI can revolutionize the way you produce visually engaging content? With rapid advancements in AI technology, the visual content landscape is undergoing a significant transformation, making it easier and more innovative than ever for creators and marketers to produce high quality visuals. Today, we're joined by Corbett Drummey, a leading marketing professional from Lightricks, the company behind groundbreaking visual content creation apps like Videoleap and Photoleap. Corbett will share insights into how generative AI is reshaping visual content creation, the advantages it offers, and how you can harness these tools to elevate your marketing efforts. Hey, Corbett, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, I'm super excited to talk with you today.
So glad to have you here to start. Can you just tell us a bit about your background and how you became involved with Lightricks?
Absolutely. I joined the Lightricks team about 2 years ago. We actually were running a Chicago based startup called Popular Pays, a creator influencer marketing platform. And Lightricks acquired us 2 years ago. So we joined the team and have been working to both continue to improve the products, especially Popular Pays, but we've been involved in helping launch some new ones, which I can talk about today, such as LTX Studio.
Terrific. So, what inspired Lightricks to actually start to integrate generative AI? It's not something that's necessarily obvious or that every single app or brand is doing, although obviously increasingly more are. But what was the inspiration there?
Lightricks has had a really long history of using just the best technology possible through all their apps. So Lightricks itself has its roots back in 2013, where the founders were involved in a PhD program, working with the most advanced research at the time for, photo editing, et cetera. That's where their really popular app called Facetune was born out of. But over the years, like as new programs and new like technologies developed to make it easier to edit photos and videos and content, we've always been integrating those in our apps, but I would say everything seemed to change 2 years ago when we were getting, first early access to things like Dolly 2 and realizing how much of an impact AI is gonna have in the space. So it was kind of a watershed moment where we all realized it's gonna be a sea change. We need to rethink everything. So we started to both integrate AI into all of our apps like Photoleap, Videoleap, Facetune, et cetera. But then we were building some from the ground up. LCX Studio is a AI video platform built from the ground up around AI. So that was really new to us. We've definitely put in features across everything that AI has made easier, but we've also just tried to rethink content creation in general in the world of AI. And so it's been a really interesting 2 years.
I think that's fantastic because I feel like you're avoiding that Kodak moment where you almost go into denial about what's
Yeah.
happening with the industry, right? And you're like, okay, well, this sounds fantastic. Let's figure out how we can bring this in. So, if you could talk to us a little bit about what are some of the specific generative AI features that both Videoleap and Photoleap have and how they actually enhance content creation.
Yeah. And credit to the Lightricks team as well overall, because there's a definitely a culture of, there are no sacred cows and we should think from the ground up and first principles about what's going to be the best experience for users. And even if that means, like you said, with a Kodak moment, you're either incurring the pain today of disrupting your own business, or you eventually get disrupted by someone else. And so I think
Yeah.
there's a good culture here of like we try to disrupt ourselves. But as an example, Facetune is a wildly popular app, and we've introduced some like one-touch edits that have become some of the most used features within it. And for other apps like Photoleap and Videoleap, which are really popular for static photo editing and video editing, we've done some really cool things. Like on Photoleap, there's just a dozen or two, different AI effects on the homepage you can do. And people are most familiar with the early ones, like turning yourself into an avatar, but they've gotten really amazing. Like one of my small favorite ones was using like sketch to AI, or like you can kind of use AI to like design a room or design take a sketch to a building. Like there's all kinds of experiences now that's powered by AI in these apps. And even where come from with Popular Pays, the brand and creator platform, we've used AI to help you write better briefs to creators. You can put in a blurb and it'll kick out a brief based on all the historical briefs that are in the platform. So it helps you get to like the end stage faster. And other things like brand safety tools, like AI is valuable across all these products. But I think, yeah, the different thing is that with LTX Studio, it's built from the ground up around how can we leverage AI to help people make amazing stories as easy as possible, and really bridge that gap from, imagination to content creation. And I think it's the fastest way in the world to go from concept to content, honestly.
I would totally agree with that, and I love this idea of being able to use it to help create briefs, creative briefs for
Mm,
content creators. That's something that a lot of the folks listening, they may be facing that need. They may not realize they need to create a creative brief but when they're working for influencers, but you absolutely should. So that sounds like a great assist for them. And I also love that you mentioned that one touch edit. I know for a lot of folks, editing, whether it's images or video, is not something that they're particularly used to doing. So giving them that quick access to that tool overcomes one of their challenges. What are some of the other challenges that you're seeing that are facing content creators that your tools are just outright helping them thanks to AI?
yeah, I'll touch on both like the creator side and the brand side. I come from a world where we're kind of representing both with our platform at Popular Pays. We're connecting brands and creators, but across the electric suite of apps, I would say on the brand side, I think using tools like LTX Studio to, like you said, brief creators or brief an agency on an idea, it speeds up the process so much. I came from an advertising agency before starting Popular Pays, and we'd always pitch our client on these concepts. We'd use text in a script and, some comped up photos to kind of illustrate the idea. But now with like a single blurb, I can put in an idea. It gives me, the sound effects, the sound effects, video and narration, and I can get to like a rough draft of a project in about like a minute or two. And then you can also style transfer over something else. So you can now adjust the style with like uploading one photo. So you can really go from a concept in your head to a rough draft of a video to like present to a client or a partner within a few minutes. So I think for a brand that's really revolutionary, they can pitch creators, creators can pitch ideas to brands. And that whole era of like rapid prototyping is how brands can be more agile in their marketing world. I would say, like, as a caveat, it is best. I think AI tools are best in class for content prototyping. I don't think they're quite there yet for using it in external assets right out the gate. It's getting very close. Like, if you've used the style transfer feature on LTX Studio, with uploading one photo, you can change the entire project into the style you desire, and it's scary accurate. But the underlying video models continue to improve month over month. And I would say, by the end of this year, next year at least, you'll be at a point where you can be exporting assets from these AI video tools to use externally, like in a social post or something. So that's going to really change the landscape that we work in.
I love the idea of prototyping. We were talking, before we started recording in the green room about the use case I've seen where, agencies are using these kinds of tools to create logo concepts with customers where they can go back and forth, and have hundreds of concepts and do that in a span of minutes, maybe an hour over a quick call. Whereas normally they'd have to go back and forth with designers for weeks and they'd have to have
Mhm.
stipulations. Well, you only get 3 revisions because we can't spend the rest of our lives trying to come up with a logo concept. And then, of course, using AI, they've got these logo concepts that once they're finalized, they can take that back to the designer. Because to your point, it's really not going to be ready for primetime external public facing assets, but it'll get you to a point where you can create that a lot faster. I'd love it if you could elaborate a little bit more on that style feature that you
Yeah,
mentioned. That sounds fascinating. I come from a web design background. So for me, when you say style, I'm thinking cascading style sheets where I can go into that text file and say, I want to change the font from Helvetica to Tahoma, and it occurs across the whole website. It sounded like it was something similar with that feature. If you could explain a little bit more about what assets it's actually impacting in that project. What are the capabilities there? And then what happens next?
sure. So this is one of the like every once in a while when you use technology, it's kind of like a wow moment. And I mean, maybe it's like the first time I used Mailbox where I snoozed an email. That's a small one, but I was like, oh, it's really nice. This is one of the most recent like wow moments I've had. It was really cool coming from a company where I work, where I was using LTX Studio to create projects. Like a teammate of mine had made this really cool like alien invasion in Chicago trailer. And that alone was cool. Like what it can do with just a blurb, it can kick out like a trailer in 2 minutes of work. Granted, getting it perfect, like getting all the tweaks, you can change the camera angle, you can change the length of the clips to match up with the narration. That can take an hour or two to really get your vision to life. But getting 80% there really does take like a minute. And but the thing that was so wild to me is that, you know, I'm gonna use things that people know because just so that the audience would understand it, but you should really use IP that you have the rights to. But for example, I could upload a single photo and of like a Barbie type of branding, and it changes the alien invasion in Chicago from like a dark, gritty, dystopian thing to a fantastic Barbie invasion where the ship is beautiful, like pink. Like this guy has blonde hair instead of, dirt and grime on his face. Like it is remarkably good at interpreting style. Scary good. Like, you can even take things like what I would use it for more like is if I'm a creator and I have a certain style, I'd make something in a rough way and then just take a screenshot of something that I've made that I like, and it will quickly adapt it so I can kind of prototype with my own style. Or as a brand, you can just take a screenshot of your own branding and we'll push in that direction. So you can get like 95% there. This is still something where you can export the video files with LTX Studio and finish it up in whatever program you use. And you'd still probably want to do that with where the video models are today. But like we talked about, like the amount of rapid prototype you can do, I don't think people quite realize how far that's gone today because it's changing so fast. But if you even use the style transfer feature once, I think you will see what like kind of the bleeding edge of what's possible. And by the way, like this stuff, it's free to try. So I'm not like selling something. It's you can try it out the studio, and there's other tools. There's lots of great video models, but what I really liked about LTX Studio is that I'm not a creator by trade, and this is kind of entry level where it's like imagine a ChatGPT for video. We just put in the blurb and it'll kick out a full project for you. If you're really advanced as a creator, there's awesome tools out there for like fine grained editing. And I respect a lot of the people in the space. There's so many good video models out there and more to come. But that's something where I'd say like if you're a beginner, it's a great place to dive in. And it's worked for folks like me that didn't have a background in video editing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And that's exactly right. And that's why I resonate with that particular point. I do not have a background in video editing. I use a Mac, which means I use
Mhm.
iMovie, and that's pretty much the extent of my video editing
Me too.
capability. And it works for what I needed to do, but I'm not creating anything to that level of creativity and interest and excitement, entertaining or product or customer facing.
Mhm.
So to have a tool like that, like you said, that you can prototype and you can quickly change it depending on the mood or the style, that's fascinating. One thing I'd love to do is really just actually stop for a moment and go a little more high level because we didn't really outline how Lightricks is organized, because I think readers are and listeners are getting the sense that, oh, there's probably a lot of apps
Mhm.
and a lot of different programs in here. It's kind of like an Adobe where there's a lot of different tools that you can use in that toolbox. Could you take a second to just outline for us what's in the toolbox?
Absolutely. I mean, and that's good to take a step back and we can give context both on Lightricks and also talk about the space in general and where that's going. So Lightricks overall, yes, their first product out of the gate was Facetune, which of course was a real smash hit. I mean, Lightricks overall has tens of millions of creators, like monthly active creators, but so many people across the world use Facetune. And it really was timed well. Like they started in 2013 and it was timed well with the rise of, mobile, social and like subscription apps. They were one of the first, I think, in the app store to do that. So that's what really got them, in this kind of, rocketed up in this path. But they've continued to release tons of new products over the years. Some are beloved by a small audience and used like Motion Leap, I thought was like magic when I first used it, for example. But overall, they've made lots of photo video editing apps. The most popular ones there are Photoleap, Videoleap. But I'd say Lightricks overall is constantly, as we mentioned before, they're constantly thinking about just the output of how can we best give people tools to shrink that gap from imagination to creation. And I'd say right now, like Facetune is still a huge focus considering how big that product is. But I would say right now the focus is on really focusing on like how can we leverage AI in tools like LTX Studio to push that whole barrier forward in terms of what's possible with content. So they're getting, every year closer to the metal around that deep tech of what can we do to give tools that have amazing outputs. So we're constantly changing the product portfolio based on what's out there today. But yeah, I'd say one recent update is that as of 2 years ago when they acquired Popular Pays, it's now not just tools for content creators, but we're also making tools for brands. The cool thing about LTX Studio is it's really useful for both. Like as a brand, you can see how it's really valuable to prototype brand assets. But as a creator, it's really democratizing things. Like you can make pretty much a feature film type thing as a creator now with that, and you probably couldn't have before. And I think over time it'll open up this big space between TikTok and Netflix of like creators making the next generation of shows and things. I think it's going to really open up a lot. So it's been cool to see this evolution of the product portfolio, this realignment to AI, and also that broadening of scope from just creators to both brands and creators. But yeah, I'm kind of on the leveraging LTX Studio. I focus a bit more on the brand side personally, just 'cause that's my
Okay.
background with Popular Pays. But we've seen some really amazing things from creators. One of my favorite ones there is we did this community challenge where we gave LTX Studio to a bunch of creators. I mean, anyone can sign up. And we ran a challenge to see who can make the best trailer. And then we would help produce that asset. So it's like you can imagine like a new movie studio model there where, it's like we kickstarted a movie. You said, hey, everyone make the best trailer you want, and then we'll give you a budget to make it come to life. It was really exciting to see what people made.
I love that use case. I've
Yeah.
often seen great fan films based on some of my favorite film and movie IP and television show IP, and I've always wanted to do that sort of thing, but have never had the time to
Mm,
learn the level of tools that they need to use. And obviously, this would be just something for fun. I mean, this is just something they post on YouTube or TikTok as, hey, this is our tribute to Star Wars or whatever the case might be. So I love that idea. Folks, we're talking with Corbett Drummey about the incredible impact that AI is having on the video and image creation industry. And let me share with you really quick a tool that I'm using for text generation. This episode of AI and Marketing Unpacked is brought to you by Magi, your gateway to making generative AI incredibly simple and accessible. Wondering how to seamlessly integrate AI into your marketing strategy without getting bogged down by complexities? That's exactly where Magi shines. It provides user friendly AI solutions that empower marketers just like you to innovate and elevate your campaigns without needing a degree in data science. Imagine having the power to generate creative content, insightful marketing data analysis, or even personalized customer communications, all at the touch of a button. Magi isn't just about providing tools, it's about transforming your approach to marketing with AI that's tailor made to be straightforward and effective. So, whether you're looking to boost your content creation process or want deeper insights into your marketing performance, Magi makes it all possible with a few clicks. No fuss, no hassle, just results. Ready to simplify your AI journey? Visit Magi today to learn how their solutions can revolutionize the way you engage with your audience. Don't just market smarter with Magi. Tap the link in the show notes. So, Corbett, let's talk a little bit more about LTX Studio. What are some of the key features specifically that it offers, and how else is it transforming the filmmaking industry?
sure. Yeah. And it's a good segue from talking about how Lightricks is organized as a company to talking about their newest product, LTX Studio, and how that product is organized. There's a few key features. I would say the quickest way to get a sense of it is, yeah, imagine a ChatGPT like interface where you can put in a blurb and the output is a full movie project, like a full project involving, of course, video in scenes, sounds, narration. But I think the unique thing about LTX Studio is this really unprecedented level of control over the video. So it can both generate the whole project with just a prompt, but you can also go in and change individual shots in the scene. So if I, am generating a person walking down the street, I can add cars. I could say make it rainy. You can change the individual things and keep iterating really quickly until you're getting the scene you want. And what's wild is that feedback loop is so tight. When you change the description of a scene, it will give you a preview, like a static preview within a few seconds. And you can also generate the movie and see what the movie will look like for that shot within 10 seconds. And so it is this crazy thing where you can both, with one prompt, generate a whole project, but then dive into the details and tweak it as much as you want. There's a few really innovative things that we've added that people might not have guessed, but have really given it its power. I would say one of them is this character consistency, where it's really hard to generate consistent characters with AI, but it's one of the innovations we've put in there under the hood. So I can make a character like at Mike or at Ben or something, and it will know who that character is. And if I tag them in a new scene, they'll pop up in that scene, which is awesome. I would say, like, 4 to 5 times when you generate something, you get what you're looking for. There are some things that are, when you go into details, you can even remove objects in the scene or add objects and change the scene angle. And you can get so precise that I've found, although I can generate a rough project in about 1 or 2 minutes, I've before spent like 2 hours trying to get exactly what I wanted out of a short story that I wanted to put a video to. And so, yeah, I think it's this really unique product where it's like breadth, not depth at first. You can get a full project in a minute or two, but you can really dive deep and keep tweaking it until it's exactly like the vision you had in your mind. And the last part is, like, as the underlying video models improve, the results will only get better. So
Yeah.
it's quite remarkable now, especially after the style transfer thing released. But it's also, once you use it, you immediately see, wow, this is just going to keep getting better and better.
I would totally agree. Those abilities to edit and then add consistency in terms of characters and elements across projects and scenes, that is truly a differentiator. I mean, folks, you've been listening for a while. You know, I use Magi. You may know that I use Magi to create images for my blog. And each one is a bear. He's wearing a fedora hat, like I often do, in a Star Wars setting. It's fairly simple. I can't edit those once I create them using the DALL-E 3 model. If I don't like what came out, I simply have to try again. And the bears themselves, and all this is fine for my use, but if you wanted to go further, you couldn't, because the bears themselves are different in every single image that it's created. It's always a bear in a fedora, but the bear might be brown or gray or bigger or smaller. I mean, they're all different.
Hmm.
Whereas with your tool, if we were talking about a video, I could have that consistent avatar for my business, the bear in the fedora that looks the same in every single piece and shot.
Yeah, what's wild is, like, so with LTX Studio, you have these like individual precise settings within the shot. Like, you have a shot editor, then you can change settings in a scene. So you can change an entire scene to be, go from sunny to raining. But then you have global settings. Like, I can change the style from anime to cinematic in one click. Or like you mentioned, I could add a character like this bear, and not only add, the character's clothes and their kind of personality, so that when, like, their appearance, personality, et cetera, so that when I tag them in a shot, like, this all bleeds through in the shot. But that style transfer thing will get it from being like 80% approximate to what you want to like 97%. Like, it's so close. And so we're getting to a point where we are testing with a few brands, like brands that have mascots. We're testing making video assets with this, with just style transfer and no other fine tuning, because it's gotten that close and that good. Over time, you can do even more fine tuning, but it's wild what you can do with just one photo now. Pretty crazy. I would tell everyone that they should at least try it. I think it's also important because, like, it's kind of unfair to marketers and creators and everyone in space, because the whole AI revolution is hitting us first. Like, it's not hitting healthcare or something. It's hitting everywhere, but the epicenter is in content creation. So it's hard for everyone in this space because we have to constantly change, constantly learn. and it's like the ground is shifting beneath our feet all the time. So it's exciting. It's stressful though, because you get in the work habit and then you have to relearn it. But I would say lots of people might think like, oh, it's just around the corner, just around the corner. But once you start using this kind of stuff, you realize how important it is to stay on top of it, because it will, once it starts helping you do your job your day to day, I think that's a key moment. And we started to see that for some brands for, I'd say this is bar none, like AI is the best way of quickly communicating a creative idea visually. Like instead of taking time to make a brief, just take a minute and communicate it with a video. Like it's crazy. So I think it's really tough for our industry because we have to constantly change. And I feel for creators and brands that have to navigate this sea change. But we also feel it even though we're some of the ones developing it. I mean, there's constantly new technologies we can use for the underlying part of the platform. But at least we live in a really exciting time and exciting industry. Even though it's stressful, I guess I'd rather have this than have everything be very static. You know,
Absolutely, and everything you just said is exactly why we have this podcast, is to talk
it,
to people like you and help everyone listening. You're all marketers, agency owners, or solopreneurs, or you're doing marketing for in-house for a brand, and you're trying to keep up. You're trying to figure out how to apply these concepts and these tools and these trends to your own job so that you've got job security and you continue to be productive and enjoy what you're doing. And that's what we're talking about. That's what we're here for. So we've talked through some of the tactics and the techniques within the tools. I'm wondering how you feel generative AI contributes to storytelling and how
mm,
that impacts from that visual content creation perspective.
that's a really good question. I would say, well, storytelling is just fundamental to good content. I do think that this technology will democratize storytelling, but one of the things we've talked about is that LTX Studio is a storytelling platform because we're not just letting people generate individual videos, but rather a full output, like a full project to communicate an idea. You can put in this blurb and it will help you build out a story. You can put in a blurb and it'll flesh out like scenes, characters, etc. But you can also drop in a script and it'll just produce that as faithfully as possible to your script. So we've been to a few like film festivals with this and have seen like a really remarkable interest from filmmakers, directors, etc. because it can help them, you know, bring something to life. And one thing I've thought was kind of special is that a lot of creatives I've met, almost all of them had something like some pet project or old idea that they'd never brought to life, but they've always really wanted to. And just putting that in and showing it to them was pretty special seeing their reaction. Like, wow, that's kind of exactly what I imagined. I would say I'd caution people in the sense that when you first start using these tools, it's really too easy to get something that looks like everything else. And there are ways to get around that. The simplest way now, I think personally, is taking your style or something you have the rights to and style transferring that to immediately move it over to something that looks average to something that looks like you. Or use inspiration if you have, there's open source images that allow people to use them for things like this. So you can use a style that inspires you. Obviously, it's not you with the terms of this product or just in general, you can't use someone else's IP that you don't have the rights to. But these tools kind of generally push you in the same direction at first in terms of what the outputs look like, because they're all using the same models. But now there are ways, not just through advanced prompting, but through these tools like style transfer to quickly really push it into unique territory. There's still the underlying models to contend with, but it's just like before, everyone's using Photoshop, for example, or, the editing apps on their phone, etc. So I think that don't get discouraged if you start making something and it's not looking like you want, because there are now ways to get around that. But yeah, I'd say for storytelling, I really hope this will usher in like a new era of democratizing stories. I think there'll be a longer tail, but with algorithmic feeds, it will surface the diamonds in the rough better than ever before. There'll be too much content, good and bad, for humans to sort through. But with algorithmic feeds, I think some really great diamonds will rise to the top. And I would encourage creators because I think there's going to be a lot of space between the Reels and TikTok short form videos and the Netflix like huge budget videos. I think there's a lot of stories to be produced in that area.
I love your point about taking the time to do the pre work that will allow the AI to understand your vision and give you the kind of output that is truly unique to you, your brand, your audience, that sort of thing. Because we've talked about this concept before on this show. whether it's written, audio, video, it doesn't really matter. The AI is going to give you the most generic response, the
Yeah.
average of all responses. That's how it's trained to do, unless you tell it otherwise.
Mhm.
So, using in your case, that style import feature, that's fantastic. Are there other considerations that content creators should keep in mind when they're integrating AI tools into their workflow?
You touched on this. You knew this really intuitively, but I would say perhaps the biggest misconception right now is that creators will use AI and expect it to give them outputs immediately. But I think as you've talked about, as we talked about together, AI is really now a tool for just like this agile content creation process. It's really a tool for prototyping. And so I would use AI to give yourself that fast leg up on rapid prototyping and then use just craftsmanship tools to get that final output to the highest degree you can. But so I'd say if there's any misconception right now with creators and just storytelling or using AI in content, the misconception is that I'm using AI to make an output or like that's what it's good at today. That's not what it's good at. I even when I use things like LLMs and I use ChatGPT and things like Claude a lot, I use it to make sure I don't miss something. Like, hey,
Hmm.
I'm making an outline for X, Y, and Z, and it will suggest a top like a subsection I didn't think of. Like, I'm making a marketing plan. What should I do? And it will say, "Oh, did you think about not just social and email marketing, but this other thing, like affiliate or whatever?" It's really good for covering your bases. It's good for scaffolding. It's good for prototyping. It's not. No one's gonna take like a a tweet that or, a joke that AI wrote and ship that without editing or, an asset. There are some pretty cool image generators out there now, but for the most part, like, I would use it to prototype and inspire and riff off of it with, but don't think you need to be using it straight to generate outputs because that will be frustrating probably because it's not gonna get as good as you would be used to for, like, human quality output right out the gate.
I couldn't agree more. And and the other side of that coin is almost a cautionary tale for the lazy marketers who do want to just take the output and copy and paste it into whatever channel, whether that's social media, blog post, or whatever. It's not going to be what you expect, and it's not going to get you the results
Mhm.
that you hoped for without your intervention, your editing, your the human touch. So I've got just one more question for you, Corbett. I'm wondering if you could take out your crystal ball, and as challenging as it is in this industry of AI, where things are literally changing every day, what do you see happening in the future, particularly when it comes to visual content creation?
And also, I wanna touch on one more point too, because you
Yeah.
mentioned something from, your last comment. You were talking about, like, the lazy marketer just putting stuff out. I totally agree with that comment, but it sparked something else I wanted to chat with you about too, which is when using outputs in AI, one more piece of advice I'd give is to lean into the glitchiness, if that makes sense. So the only time I would use outputs directly from AI, don't use it in that lazy way. I totally agree with what you're saying. You can use it in kind of a funny way sometimes. Like there's this bot I
Mhm.
follow on Twitter that is just completely AI, like straight output from AI, but it's not for the purposes of like, bland marketing advice or something. I follow it because it's funny and quirky and glitchy. And so marketers who use AI successfully have leaned into the artifacts and not tried to erase them. So there's this like beautiful Coca-Cola ad. We didn't make it, but they use that kind of glitchy feel that comes from AI and lean into it as like a style choice. And I think that is the direction you want to go, where you either lean into the faults. You use AI because of, not in spite of the faults and the glitches, etc. You lean into that style format, or you can do some really fun, quirky things. It's kind of the same type of humor of like we gave our intern the keys to the social media account and look what they did. And it's yet another way to break through the typical things you'd see. So, yeah, I would say, like, either use it for prototyping and to inspire you, or lean into the glitchiness and use AI in spite of, to lean into that the artifacts that might be generated in the assets, or to kind of, lean into that randomness. I know that can be scary as a brand, but, no risk, no reward, right? You can always you don't have to have it come straight from the API to Twitter. You can always, you know double check it before posting, for example, but I would still lean into it more than you think. And then the last thing when you asked about, like, trends, I'd really also like to hear your perspective on this too. But I would say in the next year, I think the underlying models will get so good that we can jump that chasm between only using it for prototyping and wow, you can export now. It's really getting there. And there's a lot of new video models set to be released later this year. Of course, everyone's waiting for things like Sora, but there's a lot of things in development. And I really think that we might even see a new like content channel. Like usually when things change, like with the iPhone, you had things like Instagram pop up with the iPhone camera and on platform editing, like on mobile editing. We might even see a new channel because there's gonna be such an explosion of content once it can jump straight from AI to external use. And with algorithmic feeds, there'll be some really cool things that pop up. So I think we'll get some cool new shows and things like that out of this revolution. And I'm excited and nervous at the same time.
Yeah, right. Now, I was very much in agreement with your earlier comment about using AI in certain ways, in quirky ways. I have a LinkedIn newsletter that essentially lets my LinkedIn audience know, hey, this is the newest podcast episode, and this is what it's about. And it's written by my AI assistant, Clue, which is a Tron reference. And I'm very transparent about it. Clue wrote this. Clue is putting this out. It's Clue's perspective on the episode, and I do that just for fun. But you're right, brands can use AI in those fun, quirky ways in a lot of different ways. And I definitely love the comment about how this is just the beginning in terms of the model capability and the tool capability. Sam Altman is famous now for saying multiple times, this is the worst ChatGPT. This is the worst OpenAI. This is the worst generative AI that you'll ever have to use because
Mhm,
tomorrow's models are going to be so much more powerful. And I love how this is opening a world of marketing specifically for small businesses and small business owners and solopreneurs and boutique agency owners that they would have never been able to do. They could not have had the time or the bandwidth or the resources to create any kind of, feature film level material for themselves or for their clients. And now they will be. So it's not that it's taking away their jobs, it's enhancing their capability. Now they can truly tell gorgeous stories on TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts in those brief amounts of time that they never would have been able to do before.
mhm.
Yeah. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Corbett, this has been absolutely amazing for folks who want to know more about you. Maybe they want to contact you with questions. Where can they go to reach out?
Yeah, so I would say at ltx.studio, like the URL ltx.studio, you can sign up to try the products I've been talking about, the AI video product. And we post some really amazing things on our LTX Studio Twitter account, X account. So I would start there. That's where so much of the innovation is happening. And that's where I'd push people. Of course, if you want to look good in a photo, check out Facetune. I think a lot of people might have already downloaded it at least once. And we have a suite of apps, like I said, for video editing, Videoleap, photo editing, Photoleap. But if you want to see the latest and greatest in AI from the ground up, I would play around with the LTX Studio product a little bit, just to get familiar with it. And you can always tweet at me if you want to chat through how to get the most use out of it, just at Corbett Drummey on X on Twitter. But yeah, this was honestly really fun to talk through. And it is a really exciting space. I bet if we talked again in a year, it'd all be completely different.
Right? A lot of my guests are going to be coming back in 6, 12, 18 months. The previous episode with Mitch Jackson, all about IP law. Mitch is definitely going to come back in 6 months because
Mm.
everything is changing. But thank you so much, Corbett. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been a fantastic conversation. I will have the links to all the tools and everything that we talked about today in the show notes, as usual. Don't forget to find us on Apple, the AI and Marketing Unpacked podcast, and leave us a review. We'd love to know what you think. Until next time, welcome to the grid. Thanks for joining us on AI and Marketing Unpacked. I hope today's episode has inspired you and given you actionable insights to integrate AI into your marketing strategies. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and consider leaving a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts and answer any questions you might have. Don't forget to join us next time as we continue to simplify AI and help you make a real impact in your marketing efforts. Until then, keep innovating and see just how far AI can take your market. Thank you for listening and have a fantastic day.